on March 21st, 2025, the State Department approved the revocation of a student visa for Romesa Osturk, a Turkish citizen who is a graduate student at Tufts University, apparently simply for writing an op-ed. According to an internal State Department memo, you took this action under your discretionary authority to revoke visas, and soon after you revoked her visa, armed and masked plainclothes officers snatched Ms. Osturk off the street and transported her to a prison in Louisiana. Mr. Secretary, do you really think that Ms. Osturk's op-ed results in a foreign policy consequence for the...
Welcome back, patriots, to the Constitution Corner. If you're new here, this is the channel where we speak truth, defend freedom, and take a stand for the Constitution, the rule of law, and good old American common sense. If you're tired of open borders, woke politics, and the collapse of our national sovereignty, folks, you're not going to believe what just went down on Capitol Hill. I mean, I've seen my fair share of overreach and bureaucratic insanity, but this takes it to a whole new level. So buckle up, because today we're diving into how the Biden State Department, yes, the same one that's soft on the border, soft on China, soft on terrorists, is now going hard on free speech from a graduate student. A foreign student who wrote an op-ed. That's right. A column in a college newspaper. Let me walk you through this jaw-dropping exchange between Senator Marco Rubio and Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
I believe that case involves someone whose visa we never would have granted had we known ahead of time.
I'm not asking you that question. I'm asking you if you think an op-ed, but that's exactly, in fact, what happened. The State Department wrote a memo concluding that you did not have sufficient grounds to revoke Ms. Osturk's visa. There was no evidence showing that she'd engaged in any activities that were a threat to national security. And in fact, in May, a federal court ordered Ms. Osturk's release from detention, noting that the sole basis for the government's detention appeared to be the fact that she co-authored this opinion piece in the Tufts newspaper in March of 2024. Where in the Constitution does it say that the Secretary of State can override the First Amendment protections of free speech? Is there a footnote that I missed somewhere?
There's no constitutional right to a student visa.
But is there a constitutional right? Does it say somewhere that Marco Rubio gets to determine which speech is appropriate and revoke student visas based on what you think constitutes free speech?
There's a statute that says the Secretary of State gets to determine whether someone is a threat. We deny visas every day all over the world.
Do you think that the Immigration and Nationality Act trumps the Constitution of the United States, Mr. Secretary?
Well, Congress can always change the law if you want, but I'm telling you,
Mr. Secretary,
while I have the authority, I will continue to revoke the visas of these people that come here to tear this country apart.
You said that, Mr. Secretary. Let me reclaim my time, because you are talking about revoking student visas based on what somebody says. And that means that you are trumping the legal supreme court, the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution of the United States.
No one has a right to a student visa.
Mr. Rubio, why did the administration need to use masked, armed, unidentified agents to whisk somebody off the street and deny her counsel for almost 24 hours after her arrest?
Well, you'll have to ask the agencies that did that work. I'm not responsible for that. I'm responsible for revoking the visas of these people that come to tear this country apart.
I'm talking about this particular case where you revoked the student visa of a Turkish citizen who was a graduate student who wrote an op-ed that you didn't like. And suddenly you allowed for masked men to whisk her off the street. And you have multiple jobs, apparently. You're the national security advisor as well. So don't tell me it's not your job who snatches her off the street.
We don't do the snatching, but I can tell you we do the visa revocations.
Let me ask you about the national security consequences of people, masked men on the streets, snatching people off the streets. If these are legitimate law enforcement agents carrying out proper arrests, why are they hiding their identities?
Because then radical crazies will try to hurt them.
So you think that U.S. agents, who have almost always gone without face coverings, even when they're arresting some of the country's most dangerous criminals, suddenly have so much to fear from a graduate student who wrote an op-ed that they need to be masked? Is that
law student was a guest in the United States on a student visa. No one's entitled to a student visa.
So you revoked her student visa based on an op-ed which trumps the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution.
Someone's coming up here to stir up problems on our campus. We're going to revoke their visa.
She didn't do any of that. She wrote an op-ed.
Well,
she wrote an op-ed, and I'm talking to you about her particular case.
Claims and your claims. Those are not the facts.
You reclaiming my time. You revoked her student visa because she wrote an op-ed.
Would you revoke? We're going to do more.
I have another question for you. Would you revoke the visa of someone in the United States who published claims that, quote, Jews are an untrustworthy and dangerous group? Yes or no?
We will revoke the visa of anyone who's in this country as a guest who's here to stir up trouble.
Are you going to revoke the visa of somebody who made that?
In the case, I'll look at it. I'm looking to get crazy people out of our country.
Actually, it's not just about revoking. You actually, Secretary Rubio, excuse me, reclaiming my time. Can you explain to me why the Trump administration granted refugee status to Charles Kleinhaus, the white Afrikaner who tweeted that exact statement that I just said? There's the case.
That's not a visa.
You granted that person to enter the United States.
That's someone that applied here through a totally different process.
Secretary Rubio,
visas are a privilege.
Secretary
we deny
Rubio,
them all the time.
You revoked a visa based on an op-ed, and then you allowed for masked men to snatch somebody off the street.
Your time is expired.
That's your claim. That's not accurate.
Recognize Ranking Member Meeks for a closing statement.
Romesa Osturk, a Turkish citizen, came to the U.S. on a student visa to study at Tufts University. She writes a little op-ed piece, doesn't incite violence, doesn't break the law, doesn't do anything illegal, just exercises her God-given right to free speech, something we hold sacred in this country. And what happens? The Biden regime revokes her visa. But that's not all. Oh no. After the visa's revoked, based on a discretionary memo, mind you, masked, armed federal agents snatch her off the street like we're living in a banana republic. Throw her in a Louisiana prison. Deny her a lawyer for 24 hours. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This isn't fiction. This is your government, under Joe Biden and Secretary Blinken, deciding that a college op-ed is enough to disappear someone. And yes, I said disappear. Because when you send in masked agents to abduct someone off the street without immediate counsel, that's not law enforcement. That's authoritarianism. Exactly. Thank God for Marco Rubio calling this out. He's absolutely right. The First Amendment doesn't come with a clause that says, unless the Secretary of State disagrees with you. It doesn't say free speech unless you're a foreign student. It's either sacred or it's not. And you know what Blinken's answer was? There's no constitutional right to a student visa. Okay, sure. We get that. But you know what is protected? The principles of liberty and the rule of law. And when someone's already in this country, when they're peacefully attending school and writing opinion pieces, you don't just fabricate a threat, revoke their visa with no due process, and have them dragged off by masked thugs. That's what tyrants do. Let's take this apart. The memo the State Department used to revoke her visa admitted there was no evidence she was a threat to national security. None. Zero. Nada. A federal court agreed. They ordered her release. Because even the judge recognized this whole thing was a politically motivated sham. So I ask you, what happens when this isn't a foreign student? What happens when they start pulling this stuff on Americans? What happens when the Biden administration, or the next unelected bureaucrat who thinks they're the moral police, starts deciding your speech is a threat? Because if they can do this to a student writing for a campus newspaper, they can do it to you. Or me. Or anyone who dares to push back against their agenda. Yes, this is what we're up against, patriots. A regime so afraid of dissent, so allergic to criticism, that it would rather use Gestapo tactics than tolerate an opposing opinion. And they still try to lecture us about democracy? Let me be clear. Student visa or not, the principles of the First Amendment apply to everyone in this country. That's what makes America different. That's what makes us exceptional. And when our own State Department tramples on those principles, we the people have an obligation to stand up and say no. Because if we don't, they'll keep pushing. They'll keep stretching the boundaries of government power. Today it's foreign students. Tomorrow it's independent journalists. Then maybe a conservative YouTuber like me. Or you for sharing a meme. This is why elections matter. This is why we fight. This is why the deep state needs to be cleaned out root and branch. Secretary Blinken should be ashamed. Every single person involved in this disgrace should be investigated, exposed, and held accountable. Because make no mistake, folks, this is what tyranny looks like. It doesn't always come with a jackboot and a flag. Sometimes it comes in a suit with a Secretary of State nameplate. So what can you do? Right arrow share this video. Right arrow spread the truth. Right arrow let your voice be heard. Right arrow support elected officials who defend your constitutional rights. This is not a drill. This is the battle for the soul of America. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Let me know, Do you think Blinken overstepped? Would you revoke someone's visa over an op-ed? Because if you're not mad about this, you're not paying attention. We are the Constitution Corner, where Americans' route guides its future. Until next time, stand strong, speak truth, and may God bless the United States of America.